The legends of Memphis Wrestling return to Jackson, Saturday, September 21st at the Picture Perfect Event Center. It will be a night to remember, featuring the stars you watched every Saturday morning on TV. Be there for the FanFest meet and greet at 3:30 and the official Memphis Wrestling Hall of Fame induction ceremony at 7 p.m. featuring Jerry the King Lawler, Superstar Bill Dundee, the Boogie Woogie Man, Handsome Jimmy Valiant, Dangerous Doug Gilbert, Wildfire Tommy Rich, the Rock and Roll Express, PG-13, Downtown Bruno, the Birdman Coco Beware, Dr. Tom Pritchard, the Dirty White Boy Tony Anthony, Nightmare Danny Davis, Terry Golden, Sir Mo, the Spellbinder, Tony Falk, Carl Fergie, Jerry Calhoun, Michael St. John, and more. Plus a special reunion of the stars from TV5 Power Pro Wrestling and KAW. The legends of Memphis Wrestling return to Jackson, Saturday, September 21st at the Picture Perfect Event Center. Sponsored by Budweiser, Pro Shingle, Thomas Media, Slide and Ride Rodeo, and WBBJ TV. Tickets are on sale now. Go to Eventbrite and search Official Memphis Wrestling Hall of Fame.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 5 of Dangerous Conversations with Doug Gilbert. I'm your host, Gene Jackson. It's my pleasure, as always, to welcome the man you came to hear, Mr. Doug Gilbert. Doug, how you doing, man?
Gene, doing good. This Dangerous Doug here, and we've made it through 5 episodes after this show, right?
We are rolling right along, having a good time.
Man, you've been staying busy this week?
I have. We had a big, good Labor Day weekend. Went home, visited my family. How was your holiday? Man,
had a good long weekend. Did some things I wanted to do. Did some things around the house. Did some bush hogging, doing some catching up, and talked to some friends. And man, had a good long weekend.
Can't beat that. That's what you like to hear.
Yeah.
Well, man, we have been getting hit with all kinds of questions. People have been sending them in. They're like, hey, we want to hear what Dangerous Doug has to say about some of these different topics. I've been kind of piling them up for a few weeks since we started the podcast. And actually, before we even started the podcast, from about a month out, we've been compiling some of these questions. And we can't get through them all on one episode, but we're going to get through as many of them as we can here this week. And we might as well get started, man. You ready to go?
Let's go. Rip them away. Right. We'll get them.
All right, Doug. Gregory West asked, what is your proudest moment in the wrestling industry, and what was your least proudest moment?
Well, I'd say the proudest was, I've got a lot, Gene, as far as anything, you'd have to say anything. You know, my dad and brother both trained me. Anything that I've done with both of them was really cool. And being partners with my dad, being partners with my brother was really neat. And as far as being proud, I liked a lot of the stuff I've done over here. I liked a lot of stuff I've done in Japan. So there's a long list of, as far as positives, what I like. And I hate to say anyone's more special than the other. And like I said, a lot of stuff with my family on the road, being together and doing all the different things that we've done. That would be the positive. Now, what'd you say, the least positive?
Your least.
Probably as far as being maybe a few of the decisions that I made and business-wise, which I'd like to think is a good businessman. I like to think I always have been, but maybe I've let my head get a little hot-headed in a few situations. And probably if you think back about things, you know, you might have done, you'd like to think you'd probably do things a little bit differently. And I don't want to say for sure I would, but I think I would make a few different decisions, maybe when I got a little bit angry than I should have.
Well, you know what they say, hindsight's 20/20, you know.
You're exactly right. Now, I could ask you the same thing, and I bet, about your life, and I'm sure you would probably, or most people would probably say, well, there's a certain thing that I shouldn't have done, which I can't specifically say one, but there's like a few instances that, you know, after I've done them, and you look back a few years later, you think, well, man, that might have actually worked out. That maybe that was a good idea that I didn't think it was.
we've all been there, but most of us didn't have a camera on our face when we made those decisions. That's the difference.
That's true. That's true.
And I got to think, just to kind of expand on the first answer, though, man, I got to imagine, you and your brother growing up, watching your dad, and then eventually, standing there in the ring with your brother and your dad, all three wrestlers. And at one point, you and your brother are standing in a ring together all the way on the other side of the world in Japan. I can't imagine what a cool feeling that is, man.
Oh, man, it's really neat. And I mean, you just feel a lot of, like I said, when you're proud of the moment and what you've accomplished and everything, man, you just looked and like, sometimes it was like it was real, but it kind of wasn't real. I would, like when I would start and I'd look and I'd see my dad and my brother both standing beside of me. And we was in some 6-man tags and down at, do you remember, which you're too probably young, man, Chucky Mullins? Do you remember that name? The guy that got paralyzed at Ole Miss down there?
Yeah, I know that name for sure.
Yeah, well, they had a benefit deal for him there on the campus, and man, that's their Coliseum deal that they got down there. I forget what the name of the building is, but like it was sold out. It was me and my dad and my brother against Lawler and a football coach and maybe Dundee, I think it was. And you talking about that was a cool, just different little deals like that. It's neat. Like I can remember just being in the ring and you kind of like, is this, really happening and everything. Like I said, that was really early on in my career and that was really cool. But there's a lot of different places. Like I said, just getting to tag with your dad, always your dad being your hero and your brother being your big brother and being your hero growing up. It's just that a lot of that is really special.
Absolutely. Paul Williams asked, what is one thing about your brother Eddie that most people don't know about him that they might find surprising?
You know what? My brother was really, and Junior, you're not going to believe this, but he was really a shy guy. And, everybody looks at him as far as his character and the way you've seen him in the business and everything as far as being this outgoing type guy. But he really wasn't. He was really right the opposite of that. He was like a shy, and I don't want to say a recluse-like person, but he kept all of his stuff kind of to himself and just kind of more of a shy guy than what everybody would have thought.
That makes sense. That's what a lot of guys who are performers, that's not their day-to-day personality, but they're able to turn that on and I could see that.
And you know what was kind of cool, what people wouldn't think, I mean, I don't say this is a strange thing or anything, but one of the out of the ring things that when me and Eddie get away, if we'd be off for a day or day and a half here or there, we'd play a lot of tennis and we'd go out, which, as far as just exercise and cardio and stuff, which you go to the gym, but just doing stuff fun that you like. That was something that kind of me and him did and didn't nobody else. I mean, we just went out, ourselves and we had a good time, played a lot of tennis.
That's interesting to hear because most people assume I say, hey, what sport do you think I played in high school? And they're always like football. And I'm like, no, I was on the tennis team. And they're like, oh, so you were skinny in high school? I was like, no, I was like 225. I was like, but in football, I was going to go out there and bang heads with a bunch of dudes all afternoon. And in tennis, there's a chick in a short skirt that was going to be bending over in front of me. That's what I picked.
And you know what, y'all, you'd have popped in. Everybody else would have too. I mean, Eddie run me it kept me in shape. I mean, pretty good as far as better shape than what I was anyway. He'd run me back and forth across the court, which it didn't hurt him to run to me. I was like, oh my gosh, please get me the ball.
Heather Franklin asks, besides obviously yourself and your father, who in the wrestling business took Eddie's passing the hardest?
I would say people that he really respected, that he was close to in the business, such as like Terry Funk, and I think it brought a lot to Mick Foley as far as Eddie meant a lot. And I mean, as far as like Jerry Lawler and Eddie, everybody's got their own comments on what they thought their past was, but it was strange, but it was a special kind of strange also and everything. And I mean, but it's guys like that. But I mean, and there was a whole lot of guys. Like I said, Eddie had a lot of the guys was Eddie's guys. I don't care if they went somewhere. when they broke in, he took care of them, give them their name, different things, and used them good and everything. Made them a living on the road. Got them on the road for the first time to be able to make a living and make something of themselves in the wrestling business.
And that means a lot to guys. A lot, you don't forget that, and man, he had a hand in so many people's, Shane Douglas, Sting. We mentioned Sid last week, and we could spend the whole podcast just talking about all the guys that Eddie had a hand in getting their breaks. So.
And not only Gene giving them their breaks, but a lot of guys that had already been in the business, Eddie liked and knew they was good workers, and they could actually wrestle. I mean, there was entertainers, but they could wrestle, and he always respected that. He would always try to use those guys too, and everything. And I think you saw that in all the territories that he booked. If you go back and look over the different guys and different stuff that people, and maybe, some of the bookers before said, well, this guy done been here and he didn't do this or something, but Eddie seemed to find him a different way and come up with different angles to kind of fit people and use people in different ways that he could.
To expand on that just a little bit, we can't stray too far from the questions, and I know we'll talk about this at length in a future episode, but, everybody talks about one of the strengths of ECW was that Paul Heyman was able to do kind of what you just described. He was able to take guys, find their strengths, hide their weaknesses, accentuate the things they were good at, find quirks about their personalities, and build around that. I mean, I feel like that's something he learned from Eddie during their time together, booking in Continental and when Eddie was up in ECW. You feel like that's an influence that Eddie had on Paul, that he was able to, make a career out of him anyway?
Oh, I think so. I think everybody, I mean, I don't know. I'm sure Paul don't talk on these topics very much, but I think so. By going back and looking and being a person like myself, that, when you're beside and you're watching everything that's happening, it's a lot easier to see things. And then sometimes when you're right in the middle of it, or if you're not seeing it at all, and the cool thing, I was kind of beside of it, and like I could throw ideas at my brother, just like Paul could and everything. But yeah, I think he learned a lot from my brother, just like I did. And I mean, but it was a series of thinking about angles, and I mean, furthering those angles. And I mean, going out and booking, it was hard to say, and people kind of don't understand this, but I've been booking 2 and 3 months ahead. And so I think I've talked to you about before. I mean, you can do that and everything. The only thing is, in the wrestling business, you got to make sure that person's still going to be here in 2 or 3 months. And you want everything to draw. I mean, the main thing is, it's dollars and cents. You want everybody to make money. Then usually things are good with everybody and everybody's happy. I mean, and if the dollars and cents aren't there, usually you wind up with people not being happy.
Yeah, and that's kind of why, guys like Eddie kind of build an inner circle of people that they bring with them places, because those are the guys they know they can trust, that, like, if I build something around them, they're going to be here.
And you know what I mean? He would say, and just have talks with everybody. And that was one of the kind of good things too. I think people kind of respected about Eddie. I mean, he would talk to all of us. I mean, everybody from the top guys to the first match guys, and, give everybody, time to talk with him, and, shoot your ideas. If you had anything that you thought was good, I mean, even if it wasn't for you, just if you had an idea wherever you wanted to use it. But I mean, he'd tell you, look, we're all in this together. We want to make everybody money. If you got something, or he'd tell me, I've got this idea for you, but do you have anything? You want anything you want to throw back at me? And see, there wasn't very many bookers that would do it, Gene. Everybody wanted to say everything was theirs, or I'm the booker and I'm the only guy. Well, that wasn't. Eddie was kind of cool with everybody about, as far as the ideas. And I mean, everybody from the top guys to bottom guys, I think everybody pretty much most of the time got along. There was issues here and there, but most of the time, like I said, everybody, as long as, everybody gets a little input and they want to be heard, and everything usually rolls pretty smooth.
So the next question, the nerdy white boy asks, how do you feel about the
dirty white boy or nerdy white boy?
Not the dirty white boy. This is the nerdy white boy. This isn't our friend Tony Anthony here. Okay. And they want to know, how do you feel about intergender wrestling?
You know what, Gene? I think it's entertaining. I mean, here's the thing. I mean, somebody wants me to knock it. I've heard all different aspects on this, and I mean, the world we're living in 2024, I mean, it's, you're going to have one person this way and one person that way. And we're going to see everything a little different. But me, I've been on shows now with every kind of person in the world, all over the world. And
Right.
what I've learned to kind of look at, Gene, is everybody's got their own opinion and their own view. Me, it's fine as far as entertainment. What do we, what is our threshold, right or left? I mean, what have you got a line? Now, I'm not saying everything's right nor everything wrong is wrong, but I mean, is there a line? I mean, this guy's asked me what my thoughts on it, and I'm telling you, I think as far as it's entertaining and entertainment. Now, if it turns some people off, then they should not want to watch it. If it don't bother you, you should watch it. I mean, that's the easiest answer I can give you as far as and what I think as far as if it's entertaining and it's not against your beliefs, watch it. If it is, don't watch it. I mean,
and people say, it's killing the business, but Doug, you've been around this business a long time. How many things have you heard over the years was going to kill the business, and it's still here? So,
hey, Gene, they had, what was it, been 5 or 10 years ago? TNA had a woman, their world heavyweight champion, right?
Yeah.
The business is still going, ain't it? Now,
still is. They've had some of the biggest crowds at WrestleManias, and
right. And I'm not knocking a woman being the world champion, but people have always said, that woman can't beat that man. Well, my point is, whatever they're doing, if it's working for them and they like it, and we go back to bookers, whoever was booking at that time liked that. And I think the female wrestler at that time, I think she was really good, but I think like I said, I'm not wanting to characterize and say you can't put one person against another, but when they start saying that you're going to kill the wrestling business, well, what have me and you not seen done, Gene? Well, I mean, I'm trying to think what I haven't seen done, and it's $1 billion industry, and I mean, on the independent circuit, guys are still making pretty good money these days, so they haven't killed the wrestling business.
No. And if you take it from a woman couldn't beat a man, it's like, well, all right, well, Rey Mysterio probably couldn't beat Kevin Nash that time. Hulk Hogan probably couldn't beat Andre the Giant. I mean, we could go down wrestling history and say people who probably couldn't have really beat him. That's, everybody knows what they're watching at this point.
Right. That's what we would hope anyway, right?
Yeah, hopefully. Now we've been to certain places in Arkansas, Alabama, Mississippi that maybe they don't know. Maybe maybe that's the guy that's mad.
Well, that's the truth and everything. But I mean, man, it's just, I think if you want to come, and I think these days, which I mean, even like you saying, our Southern fans now, they still want to get mad. Believe me, people still comes to wrestling and wants to have a bad guy and a good guy. And they want the good guy to be a good guy, not to try to be a better bad guy than the bad guy is. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, and that's South, North, everywhere. But I mean, it's just, things have evolved, and you know what I'm saying. I think the people who listen to us does too. And people wants to be entertained. I think at the end of the day, people wants a winner and a loser. I mean, look, it's never bothered me. I told somebody, I said, I made a pretty good living putting a lot of guys over, and you know what? It never hurt me any. I mean, I don't think it ever hurt me. I've heard of guys that didn't want to do business and they wouldn't do business and they'd wind up not being brought back and everything. But here's the thing. If you do business right, it's not going to hurt you. And every booker that you're working for wants you to draw money for them. They don't want to have you there to not draw money if they do something's wrong with the outlook on it.
And I've never, speaking as somebody who's been in business and as a wrestling fan most of my entire life, I've never heard anybody say, you know what, I'm not going to buy a ticket to this show Monday night because Doug Gilbert lost 2 months ago, and that means he's probably going to lose this, so I don't care about this match. It's forgotten as quickly as it happens, and if you do it right, I mean, you've done it. I've seen you do it. You've seen other people do it. There's guys who have left a match they lost and managed to get over more than the guy who won.
Right, and had more heat, and you could wind up going back and have to fight your way to get back. And then on TV, you still have just as much heat as you ever did. And that's what I didn't really understand. And, I'd see people get hot about finishes, and I thought, man, just, if you know how, and I think that's one thing that my brother taught me, if you know how to keep your heat, get your heat back. I mean, I seen him beat here or there and then go right back. Him and Lawler worked for probably near a year straight at one point. And I mean, just they had every kind of match you could have. And I mean, he put Lawler over most time, but then get his heat right back at the end, and they draw a lot of money. I mean, it wasn't a thing about never getting beat.
And we're talking about Memphis and Lawler. I mean, everybody talks about how Lawler and Dundee is one of the most legendary feuds of all time, and it is. And people aren't tired of this day. How many times did Dundee win in those matches? You know what I mean? Like, Lawler won more than he lost, but yet they kept that feud going for years and years and years. So it's all about the talent of the people involved. You're exactly right.
Yeah.
And I just want to clarify one thing before anybody gripes. They say, like we were dumping on like Southern people. I'm in Alabama. I was born in Mississippi. Doug's in Tennessee. We have nothing against Southern people. We're just having a little fun there.
No, that's it. And but I mean, I'm saying all over the people from the South, from the North, both. I mean, they want the same thing. Like at the end of the day, a good match. As far as they say, a 1, 2, and 3, and people pop. That's what they want. I mean, any wrestling fan, North, South, overseas, that. To me, instead of dodging and not giving them a finish and just, I mean, there's really no sense in that. I don't think we all have different opinions, and I guess we all could be bookers if we wanted to. If I mean, if you think you could, but it is.
Just listen to us. They could have drew money, is what most wrestlers pay. I mean, there's message boards dedicated to that by the dozens and hundreds of even. So it is what it is. So here's a fun one. Tanya J asked, what's the strangest interaction you've ever had with a fan?
The strangest interaction. Well, the strangest interaction, I guess, would be actually, when you're at the buildings, you kind of know what you're going to get, and that it is wrestling fans. But when you left, like say TV or the Mid-South Coliseum or somewhere on Monday nights, and even like the Louisville Gardens on Tuesday nights or Wednesday when we was there in Louisville still to go to Evansville, when you go out a lot of times and you would have people come up to you, and then people come up and ask you different questions and want to know where you're going, and there were so many different things with me and Eddie, and it was funny. And they would ask me something about Eddie, then they'd ask him something about me, and I said, "What are they talking about?" And he said, "Man, they will ask me anything about you." I said, "What are they asking you? They won't ask me." But it was just strange interactions away from the building more than anything. Yeah. Jim, at the building, you got everything thrown at you, but you was expecting it. When you got away, and like we'd go to the movies or something, and you see people saying something when the movie get over, we'd start to walk out and say, "Hey, Eddie Gilbert, Doug Gilbert, what are y'all doing here?" We'd say, "Oh, we're going to wrestle tomorrow night in Evansville." "Oh, what are y'all doing here? You want to go do something? You want to go to the mall or something?" Which the theater was in the mall. We'd say, "No, but we got to go." And I thought, I don't want to say stalkers like or nothing, but it was cool fans that just wanted to know what was going on behind the scenes. Kind of the stuff I told you was kind of cool that people don't know and everything. Yeah. But it's neat, and it's good that they do know you. If they wasn't bothering you, you wasn't doing something right on TV from no.
Yeah, it means they didn't care.
Right.
But it's kind of fun, like the perspective people have of celebrities and wrestlers and all this. Like, like, what are you doing at the movie theater? It's like, well, what do you think wrestlers do in between the time when they're in the ring to you do real life stuff, like you watch movies, you hang out, you go to dinner,
Well, that's what I told somebody. I mean, like we would go out in Louisville, after the Louisville Gardens, and then people would come up to us and sometimes at some of the restaurants say, "Man, we seen you on TV." And I'd say, "Well, that's cool." So, "Did you come to wrestling night?" "Come to wrestling night." But they'd always watch wrestling on Saturday. So they was, used to say, I said, "No, y'all are on Saturday." I said, "No, wrestling's been here at the Louisville Gardens for 30-something years on every Tuesday night. We'll come over." And I thought, "You're not going to come over. You're working on Tuesday night." But it was cool. I mean, just the interaction with the people was really cool, and everything. Like I said, there was a lot of strange. One interaction with a fan was me and Tommy broke down one night. I can't even remember what we would have been. We was in a road car at the time, and we wound up, a guy stopped on the side of the road, and like the next exit was a tire shop or something. I said, man, can you get us to the next exit? There's a tire shop. We're going to get a record to get this car and everything. And he said, yeah. He said, you know who I went to school with? And I said, who's that, buddy? And he said, Brian Lawler. You know him, don't you? See, he wrestles at Brian Christopher. I said, buddy, I sure do know him. But he was a funny guy. He played football with Brian and everything. But that's like coming out of Memphis. And I thought, now this is interesting. He got a old pickup truck, and here's Tommy sitting in the middle, me sitting by the door, and this guy driving. And you talking about a funny threesome looking there for a minute or two. But that was a strange kind of moment.
So Juan Cena, Juan, not John, but Juan Cena asked, if it was totally up to you, which do you prefer working, babyface or heel, and why?
I think every person, if they could get away with it, would probably tell you they had rather work heel. I would say that unless it was somebody that always worked as a heel. Now, they might want to work as a babyface just to see what it was like. But your heels, basically, always your good heels would call basically all the matches and set the pace of it, and kind of the dictation, kind of the way everything went in it. And most heels, I mean, most guys that could work with the heels would basically call the matches. And everybody, you know, as far as it was so much easier for me to be, I don't want to say be bad, but be a bad guy than I didn't want to have to be nice. I mean, like I said, I wasn't mean to people as far as nothing, but it was easier for me to be here. Different guys have got different personas and everything, but it was always cool to me. I always liked, you know, me and Eddie, which we both had little stints where we was baby faces for a little bit. But like in the start of his career, he was baby face for a good while. But then as he changed heel, he was heel basically most of the time. But then he had little stretches back and forth, but I loved being heel all the time, actually. And it was strange being a baby face.
I can get that. And you guys were good at it, but it was one of those things that as a fan, I was always like, when are they going to turn? When are they going to turn? The Gilberts aren't nice guys. This ain't real.
a lot of times I'd be in the corner in some of those matches, and I'd be thinking, boy, we're going to do this, and we're going to do it as good as we can do it, but boy, when is it going to be time? Whenever it's time, I'll be ready and everything. But it's like I said, we've all got different perspectives on what we're doing and what we like to do and everything, which, you know, ever so often you need a little bit of a change. So you got to do a little something different.
And when you're a really good heel, there comes a time where the fans, they want to cheer you.
Oh, well,
you kind of have to do it. This
is the thing, Gene. Everybody's always told me, and I mean, this is the truth. The best time for you to turn babyface is when you're at your hottest. I mean, that's if there's a time, because I mean, and usually there's going to be a time. It's going to be time to get other heels over. So usually, if you're at the top, at some time during that rotation, it's going to be time for you to rotate down. So if you're going to rotate down, or you want to kind of do something a little different, that's what you can do. And I mean, usually you can get a good little run out of it yourself doing that before you do something different.
That makes sense. Eric Frazier asks, has wrestling under your real name ever posed a problem for you or your brother or father?
You know what? It hasn't posed a problem, but like we've got a lot of different, you know, calls and people driving by your home or coming to your town. If you live in a smaller town like we do, like Lexington, Tennessee, I mean, you'll have people just show up from Kentucky or from Mississippi or from Arkansas or from Missouri or from somewhere. And, you know, I mean, all they got to do is get to the town, and pretty much everybody in the town knows where you live at and everything. And they're kind of open, because the town's used to us being just coming up to them and talking to them and being nice. They don't think it's too unusual, but then again, they say, well, where are you from? Or do you know Tommy, or do you know Eddie, or do you know Doug or something? Then when they said, oh, we don't know, we just want to come to town and see them, which, I mean, you know, you don't knock that, because you appreciate people caring about you and wanting to come and see you, but it's a different thing when people just, if you walk out the door and there's a car full of people at your house and you say, hey, and, you know, I mean, that's the only thing. I think my dad was always really nice to everybody, and man, and my brother was too, and I was some guys had sent me stuff and said, Doug, this was just the other day, and said, man, we always tell everybody we know friends of yours and your brothers, and man, y'all was always really nice to them in school. I thought, well, man, I hope we was nice to everybody in school and everything, but it's like it was a shock because we was bad guys on TV that we was nice to somebody. So that's kind of a cool.
Yeah, there were people that didn't really understand the business. Like, I don't know, those guys were always so nice back in school. I don't know what happened.
Right. They said, look at them on Saturday morning. Why are they being so mean for? And that's what I'd laugh, because I had some friends and they'd say, man, you just be quiet. And I said, man, I'm still quiet. I said, I got a job just like you do. And they would laugh. I go to work. I said, I go to work every night of the week and get up on Saturday morning, do TV, then go to Nashville Saturday night and hope I've got Sunday off. I said, then do the same thing over again. But I said, it's, you look at everything. Look, Gene, when me and you was kids, when we was growing up, when we watched movies and stuff, it's just what you see on TV, you believe it and everything. And that was our goal, to sell it for people to believe it, people to want to come out and buy tickets and see us.
Yeah, I mean, that's the double-edged sword, is like, if you're really good at what you do, then people believe it. And so then you got to kind of deal with that on the outside. Like I know you've told me, like, there's been times like you and Tommy's had people come up to you at gas station stuff because of a hot finish you just did down the road,
Oh, yeah. I guess that ought to be one interaction I could tell you also from the question before, was about in Nashville, from leaving the building and being on the road the next day, getting out of Nashville, and people hollering at us, blowing the horn. I stopped at a red light, and here comes a guy, jumps out of a car, and he's got a tire iron in his hand, and he's running towards our car. Well, Tommy jumps out of my car. Well, on the driver's side, I got a pipe that's about 5 foot long. It's just a steel hard pipe. It's just laying there with tape around the end of it. Well, as quick as Tommy jumped out, the guy was about 10 foot from him, running towards him. Well, I got around the car with that pipe, and I just stood behind the car till he got right in about reins, and I swung that pipe as hard as I could, and it went right by the dude's head. And the light turned green. The dude took off running from me while chasing for a second. And Tommy said, get back in the car. It was like you thought it was a wrestling angle or something, but it wasn't. It was just the people in Nashville was that hot. And I mean, another thing is like interaction is kind of, as far as people being mad at you, I don't know if it's interaction or not, but like in Nashville during one of the programs with Brian and with PG at times, like instead of us going, when the people would get so mad, they'd say, we're going to cut you, we're going to kill you or something. The police would say, and a lot of that's got a lot of alcohol to do with it. But we was drawing real good at the time. But they wound up pulling a car in the building at Nashville, and like me and Tommy got in the trunk of it and went out in the trunk just like it was, like something like nothing to do with us, but got in the other car and left just to get away from the building. And in Louisville, we'd have to do strange things like that, but it was where, like the security and the police would say, hey, it'd be easier for us to get you out of here that way than it would us to have to walk you out. And they didn't want no problem. The last thing we wanted was for anybody to get hurt. We wanted everybody to be mad at us, but we wanted it as far as drawing money, not to get hurt at the building or anything. Yeah. So that's kind of interactions. And that was back, when there was actually real heat, and you still had a territory going also.
And that's the other side of it people don't think about. They're like, oh, man, it's cool. I watched that video. Man, they had 10,000 people at the Coliseum wanted to kill them after that finish. And it's like, yeah, they had to get out of there. And those 10,000 people, as they were leaving, were like, hey, where are those guys at? And they start walking around to the back,
That's what one of the nights and I'm not sure which night it was. I mean, on video, you know, if you watch it back, what I'm talking about. But me and Eddie and Tommy are in the ring on Lawler, and I was trying to think who his partner was. I think it's Idle and somebody. And all of a sudden, I look up next to me, and there's standing a big guy just looking at me. Well, we're in the ring, and we're looking at everybody, and we've got our attention on what we're doing so much. And then when I look, I'm going to hit somebody, and I look, and I see a guy standing right beside me that I got no idea, a big guy, who he is. So I put my arms around him, grab him, and slam him to the mat. And right when I got him to the mat, Tommy just dropped a knee right on his head, hard as he could, right on his head. And all of a sudden, he goes sliding. Well, the police have him by the leg then and just yank him out of the ring. And he went straight to jail. Back, they didn't ask us a question. These days, you'd get asked a million questions and everything. But they'd always tell us if they're inside of the barricade, they're y'all's until we get there. And then they're ours. But they wouldn't really say much to us. And then Nashville was one of the first ones as far as to let the fans drink beer and everything. So they'd get rowdy. By the time we'd get out there last, they'd think they was ready to get in the ring and everything. So you had a lot of, you had a lot of, just people drinking that was 10 foot tall and bulletproof after they got a couple beers in them. And, as far as us getting on the people and everything, they think, well, and I was the youngest one back then. So they think, oh, if we'd whoop him for sure. They might not be sure about Eddie or my dad, but they think we'd whoop him. One night I was in a singles match. I ain't been in the ring for about 5 minutes. All of a sudden, one guy come. I kicked him. Here another guy come. So then my dad and brother both just run down the ring and stood in the ring and said, come on in the ring if you want. Then nobody, they stood there. Nobody else come. But I thought it was cool as heat. But I thought, shit, I'm the youngest. They think they beat me before they could. My dad and my brother. So they're going to get me and everything. But that was cool. At least it was good. He was drawing money for people to be there to be hot.
Right. So the Second City Saint asked, what is Doug's opinion of CM Punk? After listening to episode number 1 of Dangerous Conversations, I feel like Punk is one of the few wrestlers in more recent years who sticks up for himself like Doug described he and Eddie always did.
You know what, man? I think he's I don't think he would tell you that he regrets a whole lot. Now, he might tell you that he wished a couple of things might have happened a little different. And I might be wrong. I've met him one time, just as far as meeting him. I don't know him personally or anything. And but I mean, he seems to me, if you listen to what he says, people sent me different things that he said and everything. I mean, I think he wants to shoot from the hip and be straight with everybody. And I think that's where the persona, the straight edge, what he called himself or something, the straight edge. But to shoot straight with people. And I mean, I think he has, which I mean, I think always when you do that, Gene, you're going to get a lot of heat, but because you're going to make some people mad with what you say.
Yeah. And
you're not going to, if you're telling your honest opinion, it's not going to make everybody happy. Now, you might make some happy. And like I told you, I don't really, I mean, I can be a heel, make people mad. It's not my goal to make people mad, but if me and you're sitting here talking and people don't agree with me, I mean, it's my perspective and it's my stories on what happened and everything. But if someone don't like it, they'd be mad at me. Like I said, if he's just shooting from his hip and don't have an agenda, right or left, it's going to make some people mad. And I think he's drawn a ton of money by doing that. And I think he'll draw money as long as he's happy, and he'll work as long as he's happy. And when he gets to where he's not, I don't think you'll probably see him again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he showed us that. He walked away for 8-9 years. He didn't like how things were going in the WWE, and he walked out on top and left and did other things and showed that he didn't need the business. So.
Now, Gene, how many people do you think? I mean, just me asking you, don't you think a lot of people has been at certain points where they wished they could do that? I'm not even saying in the business, if at any kind of job, you don't think people hadn't thought?
Oh yeah, in life,
right?
You compromise yourself frequently for the good of your career, your family, your perception of those things, and you're like, man, I'd walk out of this place. There's people every day like, I'd walk out of this place right now, but I got to pay these bills. So
Exactly.
I always respect people that have the gumption to just be like, you know what, we're gonna walk.
You know what it makes me at least want to do, Gene, and I think different people are like this too. It makes you want to listen. Look, now this guy, he'll say whatever he wants. Now, we don't know. Well, what's he going to say this time? Let's listen and see, because he's going to actually tell you what he thinks. You can actually respect somebody like that. And I don't want to say it's not respecting other people for not doing it, because we're all different and we're put in different situations. But I think he's handled himself well. And like I said, there's been a few situations I should have handled different. But I know that. And I mean, I would about guarantee, like I said, I don't know him personally, but I would say, he might not say he wish he hadn't have done it, but he'd probably say there's a couple of things he wish would have happened a little bit different, probably.
Yeah, I think that's probably safe to say. I've always been a fan of his, and I've always said that he's put me in mind of guys like your brother and you who of like that. Like we're not going to put up with any, we'll do what we need to do, but we're not going to put up with any bull. Like I could have seen, you or Eddie, either one, doing the kind of things he's done. And just like him, you guys never really suffered for it. There was still a demand. You found other places to go, or you came back around. And
yeah. And you know what? I think I told you this once before. I've heard guys ask my brother, said, "Man, I can't believe you're back." And that's one of the times we went back to WCW, and he said, "Man, I can't. Well, you said what you want to, and about everybody, and I can't believe they just called you. And would you come back in and be the booker? How'd you do that?" And he said, "Well, we drew money last time we was here." And he said, "I didn't lie. I told the truth." He said, "Some people might not like it real good." He said, "But usually people gets over it and everything if it is the truth." He said, "If it's a lie, it might be a little bit different, but usually it's, people, if it's the truth, people usually get over it and going about their business."
In business, whether it's wrestling or anything else, talent and results trump everything. People will suck it up. They might not like you, but if you make them money,
right,
whatever
can
the
you
business
make
may
me?
be.
That's what I was going to say. Can you draw me money? Go out there. I don't care. I might not like you. Best go out there and draw me money, though. And when they draw money, it makes them like you a little better.
I mean, people think that's all about wrestling. I've worked in retail situations where a guy's left and the managers come tell me, like, "Hey, we're bringing so-and-so back." I'm like, "Really?" And like, "Man, he sells. Like he made us so much money last year. Like we'll figure it out." I'm like, "Okay, let's do it."
It was like I was at one of the signings here a month ago or so with it might have been the one you was at. It might not have been, but Lawler had on a shirt that said, "Wrestling's real, people are fake." And I thought that was kind of a cool,
yeah,
was kind of a cool shirt.
Very true. Hey everybody, Gene Jackson here, inviting you to check out the Retro Wrestling Review, where each week I'm joined by some great co-hosts who help me review classic episodes of USWA Championship Wrestling, and right now we are doing week-by-week reviews of 1993. But we don't just do reviews, sometimes we get a chance to interview some of the people who were there and lived it, plus do watch-alongs. It's a lot of fun, so check out new episodes that drop every Wednesday at WrestleCopia.com. And to find links to everything associated to the podcast, you can go to uswapodcast.com.
Hey guys, Ray Russell here, curator of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, inviting you guys to listen to many of the programs here as part of the WrestleCopia brand, including, but not limited to, the Wrestling Memory Grenade, currently covering the 1988 and the WWF project. You can also listen to the Regional Wrestling Podcast, where we talk the territories, whether it's Jamie Ward with Georgia 81, Roman Gomez with the UWF in 1986, or Gene Jackson covering Memphis in 85. 3 projects going on right now over there at Regional Wrestling. You can also listen to the Wrestling Stoop with the legend himself, Bob Roop. Bob goes back in time each and every week, covering not just his career, but countless stories and interactions with hundreds of wrestling names spanning his 2 decades in the business. But that's not all. You can also check out the Puro Wrestling Academy with the professor of Puro Resu, Mr. Dan Ginnity. Dan and I go back in time and cover the history of Japanese professional wrestling in the English language. And you can listen to all of those shows and more, all part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, located over at WrestleCopia.com. That's WrestleCopia.com, and anywhere your podcast streaming needs are met, from Apple to Spotify, Pocket Cast, and beyond. And while you're at it, why not subscribe to our social media guys for all the latest goings on here at the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Plus, I'm constantly adding old school video clips and pictures from throughout wrestling history. You can follow us over on X, formerly Twitter, at Wrestling Grenade. That's at RASSLIN Grenade. Also, follow and like me, Facebook.com/Wrestling Grenade. And why not subscribe to YouTube.com/Wrestling Grenade. So if you're looking to support that next up-and-coming podcast brand, please consider making it WrestleCopia.
Calvin Ward asks, what was it like working with the Moondogs? Which covers a lot of ground because there were a lot of Moondogs.
Man, I worked with about 3 or 4 sets of them. So Bill Smithson was, and Junior was probably my 2 favorite. You remember Cousin Junior that was in WWE, WWF, and then he come here as Moondog Cujo?
Lanny Keene.
Yeah. Yes, and you remember him being with with Uncle Elmer and
Oh yeah,
Hillbilly Jim, and wasn't he like the third one? Wasn't it Uncle
yeah.
Elmer
There
first,
was
or Hillbilly Jim maybe first, and Uncle Elmer, and then Cousin Junior, and then wasn't there one more?
one more. There was I don't remember what they called him.
You,
That guy didn't last very long.
but he was from, I think he was from up north, wasn't he? I was trying to
Yeah,
think who it was.
Hillbilly. What?
But there was a fourth. I can't remember. You'll remember it here a little later or something. But yeah, Lanny. He was a big guy and he could move. He was light on his feet and stuff. And I mean, he could. One of their deals was that you could go in there and you could about beat each other to death, or you could do a lot of their stuff and not just hurt you, but like you said, Gene, what people didn't realize. Yeah, good house Monday night, good house Tuesday night, good house Wednesday night, wherever you was at Thursday and Friday. If it was a good house Saturday night, then you had to go do this all over again. So I mean, the beating and the banging and the toll that your body could withstand, we want to keep going, and we did then, and it didn't matter about whether you was on guarantees or contracts or no contracts. Even if you say contracts back then, still you worked every night. I don't care if you was hurt or not. You would say contract because that was the amount you was going to get paid that week. But you was still going. It had to be a major injury for you not to work. And then usually, if it was a major injury, it was turned into an angle, like like when Lawler done when they broke his leg that time when playing football, turned that into angle and drew huge money. But like I'm saying, everything was turned into something to make money. And like I said, but at the point with the Moondogs, I was talking about the boards and stuff. We hit each other with signs, boards, and everything. But during that deal, Eddie got his arm fractured, but one of the Moondogs hit him like with a board sideways, which if you turn something flat, it won't pretty much. But you can imagine right across your forearm. Oh yeah, he had like a fracture across there. But then we went on, and Tuesday night he wrestled just like I did the Tuesday night. I went to hit Jeff Jarrett, and he ducked, and I don't know what I was actually doing, but I paid for it. I hit my hand into the steel post, and it fractured my hand. Well, I had to go straight after the match over. It all popped up out of my hand on the top. I went straight to the hospital. They put a little cast, right up past my wrist over my hand. They said, "Oh, you don't do anything for a couple of weeks as far as for your hand to be able to move." But I went on and went right straight to Louisville Tuesday and worked at Louisville Tuesday night. So that's one of the deals. You can say it got on in the 90s and later 90s and everything, when all the contracts come around and everything, when people probably started abusing that a little bit, or as far as where we put our bodies on the line so much more in the earlier days.
I remember, I've always been like the wrestling guy amongst like my friends and family. And I remember being at like a family gathering one time, and like one of my cousins came up like, "Hey, how do those Moondogs make that stuff look so real? It looks like they're really just beating the hell out of them people." I'm like, "It's because they are." And they're like, "No, that wrestling's all fake." They're not. It's like, "No, they are. Like, trust me." Like,
and that's
part of it. Them
that goes back to Gene. One thing, like the first time I went to Japan, the couple guys I talked to about going, they said, because all the fellas I talked to was older that had been over there before, and they said, "Dougie, the main thing is whatever they do to you, you do it back to them harder." And I think that goes to even guys here in the States with different stuff, like you was talking about us working with the Moondogs. You got to make sure that I don't care what they do to you, you do it back just as tough to them. So because there's a point for everybody. There's a point for myself, Gene. There's a point for you. There's a point for the Moondogs and everybody else, that if you do stuff back to them, they're not going to do it that hard again, because they know they're going to get it back. There's such things in the business, receipts and everything else, which they was tough guys, and all of them was tough guys. Like I said, we've all got our favorites, and probably my two favorites was Junior and Bill Smithson.
That makes sense. We'll probably talk about Moondogs more in the future. I think we answered his question though. So speaking of Moondogs, this one comes from someone who claims to be a Big Black Dog Junior. I didn't realize the Big Black Dog had a son.
I was fixing to say,
he's asking you a question.
I got you.
So, What was your favorite year in professional wrestling as a performer, and what was your favorite year in professional wrestling as a fan?
Probably as a fan, probably anytime after, from like when I was, say, 11, 12 years old. I loved wrestling the whole time, so it's hard to say as far as just 1 year as a fan, because from kindergarten on, loved watching wrestling and going. And my dad take me when he worked in this territory, and my brother take me when he worked here to different matches and stuff. But probably I got around when I was, 82, 83, 84, around there. I got to go on a lot of trips, and I got to stay a lot of the summer at Tommy Rich's house, and that was always really cool. When I was younger, when I was about 10 or 11, I stayed a summer with Ricky Morton, which my brother and Ricky Morton was partners in Oklahoma. Yeah. And they was a great tag team before Robert Gibson was ever around. And they was good, but like Eddie was a single guy, and him and the guys go out, and I'd go stay with Ricky, which Ricky was like another kind of like a brother figure, but dad type figure to me at the time too. And I'd go stay over with him and his wife, and he was always really nice to me. So I had a lot of cool guys growing up that I hung out with, and I don't know. I think something would have been wrong with me if I didn't learn how to work.
Absolutely. Everybody you just named right there is like some of the best in the business. So absolutely. Yeah. Violent Ray asks, the names are getting progressively sillier as we're going along. So here,
sure.
Violent Ray asks, did you or Eddie ever put much stock into holding titles in wrestling? Was it something that was important to you on a business or personal level, or was it just a prop?
I think that it was more as far as if it was the right thing as far as getting heat. You always need the heel. At the end of the day, it's always better for the heel to be the champion, the babyface to chase the heel. As far as in wrestling business terms, is if you want to go, if you're a fan, you want to see, like I was saying earlier, you want to see a finish, and you want to see a bad guy that you really don't like, that you got a reason not to like. You want a good guy that you would pay to see anyway, but you've really got a reason to pay if you got a guy that you hate and a guy that you love. And the guy that you hate is the champion, and the guy that you love tonight could be his night to beat you for the title. And it's the same way in, like, as far as a blow off to draw money, like in a hair match. As far as, if you're going to pay to come and see, I'm going to pay my hard-earned dollars. But I want to go see Doug get his head shaved. I want to go see, like, when they had the Idol against Lawler. I want to go see Idol get his head shaved, and then they do the finish they did. So hot with Tommy coming out from under the ring. I mean, that was Memphis. To me, Memphis is stuff like that. And the Eddie being Lawler's partner, and then turning on Lawler after the people, like you said, when he was so as a heel over, and then he turned, but then he just changed right back on him and threw fire right in his face when he come tag. That's, to me, is Memphis type stuff. And I mean, you can go on. I mean, there's so many other tapes that, it's cool, I guess. And during COVID, I think it brought it out more, didn't it, Gene? Like more of the old stuff. I mean, there was stuff there, but it seemed like during that era, it seemed like more of the old stuff popped up out of the blue. And man, there's some great stuff to go back, and like there's some stuff that I've talked to a few of the guys about. And I said, man, I was watching this. I said, man, you know what? Anybody say what they want? That was really good. I said, and as we was doing it, I thought it's okay, but you didn't ever want to, Gene, if you was in it, you didn't really want to say, man, that's awesome, because you can't top awesome.
Right.
Somebody told me one time, said, I asked you about it, and you said, it's pretty good, or this was okay. But to me, usually okay or pretty good, I thought was really good. But you didn't want to say, oh, you can't beat that, because then what have you got to come back for? I mean, you always
got to beat it.
Every week you wanted it to be the best TV that you'd ever done. There was not one week, and that's hard when you've got a show that's live. You know what I'm saying, and you're coming back next week, and you're going to the same people. That's the thing. Like in today's industry, you're not going to the same people. You might not go to that town again in a year.
Yeah.
Well, so you don't have to. But now, and the only deal with that is but you've got everybody watching you all over the world. So
Yeah.
you got to have now you have writers and I don't think you have such thing as a booker anymore, but you've got writers and what else do you have? Do they call them, Gene? You got
they got their agents,
right,
that
you
hand
have
out the finishes and help them work out the match, and
writers, agents,
producers.
You get producers, but you imagine but we're talking about $1 billion industry, so we can understand that, and you need that, and everybody needs to know where everybody's going to be and how everything's going to go, which we just flew by the hip on a lot of it, and it was we'd have a direction we was going. In some ways, that direction would get more amplified and it would get more reaction, but that was our goal most of the time. Like I said, you could tell a lot of times. I mean, people says, "Oh, you went off script." Well, no, Gene, we didn't go off script because there was no script.
Right.
There was Doug. You've got 4 minutes. Well, then we might come back, me or Brian, and Lawler might look at us and he'd say, "What in hell?" or "What was that?" or something, and wind up drawing or something. He'd say, I guess that was all right. He wouldn't ever say. He was like us, as far as not wanting to say something like, because some of the best stuff I thought that I done with him, or me and Eddie done with him, I'd say, "Man, that was good, wasn't it?" He said, "Oh, it's okay." I thought, well, okay, it's good. I mean, I wasn't saying it was great, but I thought that was freaking good. But that's, we all have goals and everything. That's
because guys like guys like Eddie and Lawler, they wouldn't have hesitated to tell you if it sucked, right? So if you gotta, that was okay.
If that was okay, it was good. You think I'd done my job, but because they tell you in a second, if they thought it was just okay, they thought it sucked. I mean, if they said okay, they thought it was good, but they wasn't going to tell you. I don't know if I ever heard. I'd hear Eddie say he liked angles and he liked TV segments, but matches he'd say, "Well, that's good," and he'd tap the guys on the back. But just saying, you had to have done something really good for him to say that. Like I said, and I understand. That's why I always, when I'd say and watch other people, I'd say okay, or it's good, and it might have been good, but I didn't want to think we couldn't ever do better, because I always thought we could.
And that's certainly something that has changed over the years, because now you go to indie shows and guys come back through the curtain and everybody's like hugging them and, "Oh my God, that was the greatest thing ever, man. Oh, that was so awesome." And it's like, all right, settle down. Like,
that's what somebody told me now. Somebody was saying that they book, or they don't book. The producers and writers we look at a guy have a match with somebody and a guy have another match with somebody else, and whoever the two we think will be the best. It's not about angles anymore. It's just about the two guys, and we're going to build to this pay-per-view, and if this guy hasn't even wrestled that guy, we'll just throw them together, and that will be the best match that they will say it's more stars. And I said, "Well, buddy, things are a little bit different than it used to be," but not saying that's that goes back to more like Japanese style to me than the state style. But then again, everything changes, and they've done. I don't care what people say, Gene, they've done something right, or you wouldn't have wrestling on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and we wouldn't have. Me and you wouldn't be sitting here getting to talk and actually be cool people to listen to us, and us be able to talk about stories about the wrestling business, because it's been good for my life and everything.
I just decided a while back, like, you know what? New wrestling's just really not for me. But instead of, I'm not going to sit and do 5 podcasts a week dumping on new wrestling and telling about, well, it isn't like the old days. So I watch the old stuff that I enjoy, and then I do podcasts talking about the stuff I enjoy, and everybody that enjoys the stuff that's going on now, that's great. They can watch it and they can celebrate it, and that's cool. I don't knock anybody. But I spend my time going back and watching the old stuff that I remember and love, and then we get on here and talk about it. So,
hey, Gene, who's one of from you growing up, one of your most favorite managers just say in the Memphis area?
In Memphis, I would say, obviously Jimmy Hart, but once
I was fixing to tell you, don't even say Jimmy Hart. He shouldn't be in the equation, because everybody knows Jimmy's great.
Downtown Bruno. I remember, like, as a kid watching him, and my dad always got like a huge kick out of him, and he'd walk around the house saying, "Oh, Mama says it bees that way sometimes," and stuff like that.
Hey, Bruno is a good pick, and Bruno's a good dude and everything. And he's a great manager. But if you go back a little before Bruno, you have a guy named Sam Bass. Do you ever see any of that now in, what was it, 70? Was it 76 when Sam got
Yeah, I was born in
maybe?
77 and he died in like 76.
Right
It's either
around.
76 or 78. He was either,
Well, I
he
was
either
fixing
died
to
a
say,
year before I was born or a year after, but it was right in that time.
man, you talking about a good heel manager. I mean, he had that look, and he was kind of a taller type, like he was, I don't know, 6'2" or something like that. But, he looked kind of that cowboy look, the Western shirt and the Levi's and the cowboy boots. And like, he was just, I mean, he was impressive look at. But I was a kid. I was, say, 7 years old back then or something. But Sam, I would talk to him. I'd watch him go to the ring and stuff. And one night he'd come up and he said, go get me and you some popcorn and a Coke. He give me extra money to pay for our stuff. And he'd tell me to keep it. And I wound up, and I was like one of his little fans. Usually I watched him, and, I would never cheer for him, and everybody hated him, but I watched him. I thought, man, that dude's good and everything. But I'd talk to him and everything. And then when the car wreck happened and everything, man, it was so, I remember him and my dad was real good friends, and and everything. And I just thought that's awful when they told me what happened to him. But he was really good, like Sam Bass, and like you said, Bruno, Jimmy Hart, which I was going to tell you, we'll leave Jimmy out of the picture. Everybody knows the equation of what Jimmy was here in Memphis and everything. But the different type guys, and I mean even different wrestlers like that you go back to and think of. It's just kind of amazing that the history that, from the Coliseum to the Gardens to Memphis TV every Saturday morning to Nashville every Saturday night to Evansville to back before that when they run Rupp Arena at Lexington, Kentucky. They'd run it once a month and everything. And then Jonesboro, you throw Jonesboro in there like once a month. So you had every town, and usually if you had every town running and you kept everybody, the bay faces over the hills with some heat, usually draw some money. Now you go through like you've talked before about the down times. It's not going to be up times all the time in any business. I mean, you went through times that things was booming, and you went through times when things was down, and you had to get through the bad times to get to the good. It's like any business.
Yeah, and you got to go with the economy. When people just don't have the money, then what goes away? Buying wrestling tickets, things like that.
Right.
Before we move on from Sam Bass real quick, because my dad used to tell me about watching Sam Bass when I was a little kid. And this story, he didn't tell me this, but I've heard this over the years. Maybe you can confirm this. Like, this is how different things was back then because nobody was really smart. But Sam Bass had so much heat. I've always heard it said that when it was announced in the arena that Sam Bass had been killed in a car wreck, there was actually a pop from a large part of the audience because he had so much heat, and they were just like, is that true, or is that just an old wives' tale?
No, that's actually truth. But I think when people realized, I don't know what during those days, what actually the thinking was. I would like to think that they thought it was just a wrestling
part of the show,
part of the show or something. Because and you remember, I don't know, it'd been about 80, somewhere around 83 or 84. Remember when Jimmy Hart done the thing with Troy Graham and was it Pork Chop that he said got killed? Remember when he said they got killed in a car wreck, and he brought them back in as what did he bring them in as? Wasn't they something? And but it was just something. But they done it right there on TV that one morning. What was they called, or was it Troy and somebody else?
I think
he said as a Blondes or something.
He brought Troy and like Rick McGraw back as the New York Dolls.
The New York Dolls. That was it to work with. Was that to work with Stan and Steve? Maybe.
Yeah, they were coming in to feud with Stan and Steve.
And he just said there's been an awful accident, or he said something, and they got killed. And Lance said, "Oh, Jimmy, now," which Lance was doing the thing, and nobody really at that point they just kind of get with Jimmy, being a heel manager. But I'd like to think the deal with Sam Bass that they thought, but I think after that people really realized when they seen pictures
that the actual man
had died, and like on the Nashville and Hendersonville and on all that, like on the news the next night when it was said in Memphis, that next night when it was said, I think then the people said this is not wrestling, this is real. And Man, we're not. But it was just right when it, as it happened, they had said it, and the people did. Like I said, I don't think they knew what to think. They just thought, sounds bad, good, something happened to him. But it was awful. I mean,
and then he's liable to run in on the main event and help Lawler win.
Right. Well, if you look like how, like I said, the things was with Troy and the other guy and everything, but that it was good. I mean, I think everybody tried to do everything and as where it wouldn't be. I don't want to say not tasteless or where it wasn't bad but good, but still to keep your heels. And like Jimmy was the best at getting people over and everything. And he had his run with Vince. He could do that with look at all the different characters that Jimmy was with, and he turned himself into that character. I mean, on his jacket, on his managing style, but he could go, be with anyone and kind of turn himself into that.
So, all right, we're getting almost to the end of the show here, but we're talking about Memphis managers. We're talking about right after Jimmy Hart. So this was something I was going to talk to you about eventually. We ain't got to get real deep into it, but me and Ray Russell's been talking about this on our 1985 Memphis wrestling podcast. So Jimmy Hart leaves. They have the Jimmy Hart look-alike.
J.R. Hart.
J.R. Hart, who is a look-alike, but he wasn't a sound-alike, and he wasn't a manage-alike. He strictly just kind of looked like him.
He was look-like and kind of take a bump here or there. I've seen different matches, but the only thing about him not talking or anything, if you didn't know it wasn't Jimmy, I mean, the only way you could know it wasn't Jimmy was because he wouldn't run or he wouldn't talk. But I mean, as far as like he was like a mannequin standing there that looked exactly like him, and during the match, and that was the thing about the loser leaves town deal. You know the deal about it snowing right in that night in Memphis, and about Hart having to go on. He was going to be starting up there if they didn't go ahead and do it, and that's what they talked about, canceling the show. And they said, no, he's gone. We got to go ahead. It don't matter what it does here. We've got to have this match and do this. And that night they did.
So so Jimmy's gone, and this J.R. Hart guy is clearly not working out.
Right.
Eddie forms Eddie's army. He's General Eddie Gilbert.
Right.
And he starts putting his army together. He's feuding with Lawler. Then all of a sudden, Jerry Jarrett and Jerry Lawler decide to bring in Tom Ernesto as the booker. And suddenly, the army disappeared. The army just disappears. All of a sudden, Eddie's teaming with Lanny Poffo. Savage turns heel. And Tux Newman, which is Jeff Walton from California, who he'd been in the business, but he'd never been a heel manager. Suddenly, he's the lead heel manager out of nowhere. Like, what do you remember about Tux Newman and that whole little Tom Ernesto takeover there?
You talking about kind of going off the rails on what, I mean, people have I don't want to say you don't have to be from here to know how things are, but they just took, when you haven't seen any kind of TV and you just bring in and you kind of reflux everything, move everything around and try to start from scratch. That's kind of what he did, which he kind of put everybody in a different situation. Yeah. But here's the thing. Nobody knew that Tux Newman. I've seen some of the videos, and stuff, and he was a different character, but I don't think he met what go from Jimmy Hart to that and think what you're thinking. And people was used to, for so many years, like I said, Eddie knew as far as the territory and knew what the people thought as far as his. Then you go straight to this opposite. And now Savage was good and Lanny Poffo was good. Both of them was good and everything. And he put them, and they told me that that he was a great booker, that the guy was. And I mean, he probably was at different places, but now Memphis was a different animal. Yeah. And if you hadn't, didn't have any history and seen what had went on in the past here, it was hard to come in. And like I said, I mean, you can think you've got talented guys, but if the people here don't buy it, it's not going to be what it was.
I've never liked when a new booker comes in and they just change everything, just arbitrary. Like, you had Eddie in a main event feud with Lawler that was over. Like, right. People were invested in it, and then all of a sudden, just inexplicably, Eddie's moving down the card. He's doing tag matches for no apparent reason. He went from being a general one Saturday to the next Saturday. He's not a general anymore.
He was about a private one.
Yeah, exactly. Lost his stripes.
But now what? And where was Gene? I'm sure you know this. Wasn't Tom? Was it in California or somewhere that he come from? Wasn't he like? Didn't they say he drew like money booking out there and everything? And he was also
like
one of the
10 years prior, I guess it was like his last success, and everybody kept reaching for it. Like everybody kept giving him opportunities. Like, oh man, he lit California on fire in 75, and then in 85 in Memphis, it just didn't translate.
Right. And also wasn't one of his, I don't want to say claims to fame, but it's a good deal, was he was one of the, when he with Jody, one of the original assassins, wasn't he the other one? And I mean, I really had a world, and I got the opportunity to work. I say work, Jody was in the office at WCW, but I got to work around Jody something. I always had a lot of respect for Jody, but as far as a heel tag team, I remember being a kid and like the Assassins really being, but they told me, Tom, I think by the time I started watching him, I think Jody, I don't know who the next partner was that Jody had, but I don't think it was Tom. And like I said, but I'd always heard that people really respected Tom for his work and his booking and everything. And I think that was the chance that Jarrett thought that something would be good. So Jerry gave him the opportunity. But I mean, you could tell, like you said, when you can say there's just a traffic jam and everything don't look like it's where it's not supposed to be and everything, all the people can see.
Yeah, we're watching this week to week in 85. We started in January and we're up into March. And so we're following this week to week, talking about it. And then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, what is going on? Everything just changed in 1 week's time here, and not for the better. I mean, the Savage heel turn, I mean, okay, that was good. And him feuding with Lawler was good. It kind of came out of nowhere, but the Tux Newman aspect of it, his whole spiel of coming in, I'm from Hollywood and I'm here to declare war on Jerry Lawler because he killed Andy Kaufman. He pile drove him and gave him cancer, which Eddie had already used that weeks earlier in the This Is Your Life, deal.
Right.
It's just like, I don't know. It's like I was telling Ray as we were watching, I'm like, if I'm a fan in Memphis in 85, I'm like, why would somebody who's a big Hollywood star choose Memphis, Tennessee's wrestling show to come and take over? Like you couldn't really, it wasn't real heat.
And one of the coolest things, which I mean, there's a lot of different people and a lot of different angles, but one of the coolest things that I still like and you can watch today that, people still say, I don't even know who done it in WWE, you do, but This Is Your Life deal that Eddie did with Lawler and brought out the guys. I think stuff like that was so cool. And, and we didn't want to say entertaining back then, but it was entertaining. I mean, we didn't say sports entertainment or nothing like that, but man, that was entertaining TV. I mean, just the different guys, have your different characters come out and say, Jerry Lawler, you cost me this. Jerry Lawler, you done this to me. Jerry Lawler, you done this. And that was good TV. I mean, there's good TV. There's okay TV, then there's TV that we don't want to watch. So,
well, the great thing about it was entertaining, but it was all rooted in real things. Like everybody that Eddie brought out, you had Jim White, had died, and you had, your dad had gotten screwed for the Southern title. So all those things were real things from the past. So the fans could be like, oh yeah, that really happened. That really happened. So you're like, he's making a real case again. And Lawler, but it's entertaining.
Right. And that's what I'm talking about. And even like I tell people like the stories, and people would send me things after me and you done one of the other podcasts about the interview with me and Lawler and different things that you'd said. You hear him say this, and one of them asked me about the jacket, doing the deal with the Sam Bass jacket. Remember angle of cutting the. Well, the story with that is this is the true story, was that jacket deal. Sam had left that with my dad, and it was like in my dad's car at my house, or my mom and dad's house, hanging up. And my dad went to carry it back one time and was just going to give it to Lawler because him and Lawler had matching jackets.
Yeah.
And Lawler said, "Did you have it?" My dad said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, just keep it." So when they got ready to do that angle, Eddie mentioned having that jacket, and Lawler said, "Well, I still got mine." He brought his, and they looked exactly the same. And then when they got ready, Lawler said, "Let's cut that one. Let's cut one of them up." And Eddie said, "Well, we ain't gonna cut this jacket of Sam Bass's up."
Yeah.
Lawler said, no, we don't cut Sam's up. We cut mine up. And I thought, man, I can't believe. And he said, we'll get some scissors. I told Eddie, said, we'll get you some scissors. Said, you cut this jacket in 100 pieces. And that's what, do you remember the angle? That
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
talking about?
absolutely.
Yeah, that's, and say that's the true what you say, bringing actual real aspects. I mean, it's real stuff. We're just incorporating them into different angles. But I mean, to me, I mean, we knew it was real, but I think if we knew it was real and we could get that across to people, then you would have, make people believe.
And see, that's cool that you confirm that here, because I can remember people saying back then, like, oh, that's probably not really, it's probably not really the same jackets, or it's not, So to confirm that, no, that is actually like your dad had Sam's jacket and Lawler had his, because I mean, Lord knows Lawler's got every jacket and cape he's ever worn.
He's got every one of everything that he's ever worn. And I mean, me and him have talked about this, and I've went through a lot of my stuff at different times. And he asked me, Doug, well, what have you got? I said, I still got all my stuff and my dad's stuff and Eddie's stuff. And one day me and him was talking about it, and he's talking about all the totes we had. He said, you know what? He said, I ain't telling you to do this or nothing. He said, but you know what? There's a lot of people that would like to have a lot of this stuff, and me and you ain't letting it do nothing but sit in totes. I said, well, but it's nice when you want to go look at it and you can pull it out. And I got 3 or 4 of Eddie's jackets hanging on little mannequin deals in my shop, and I think them are cool. But I want to go look at them. Got some title belts out there beside them, but I got a little setup like that. Like I said, I've got a bunch of totes. So you got to realize all the different matches and different nights that my dad worked, my brother worked, and I did. And it's cool to look back at a lot of that stuff.
Well, that's cool, man. Maybe you can take some pictures of some of those sometime. We can put them up on the Facebook page or something, because I know a lot of people would love to see them. I certainly would. So that'd be really cool to see.
Good deal. I can sure do that, Gene. And like I said, have we got through most of the questions? Like I said, people
we got a few left, but we'll roll them over to next time, because we're a little over an hour now. But I think this was good, man. You answered all the questions, and we kind of expanded on them and talked about some other things. This was a fun episode. I certainly enjoyed it. I hope everybody else did.
Man, Gene, I just want to tell you, thank you, and I want to thank everybody for listening. Like I said, I hope we've left you, like I've said before, Gene will probably leave you with more knowledge than I will, but I'm glad that I could get the stories out there, and Gene can ask me, and if y'all got any questions, just let him know, and we'll answer whatever we can, and man, we appreciate everybody listening.
Keep the questions coming. We'll work them into each episode, and then we'll do one like this about once a month or every other month. We'll do a whole episode where all we do is ask Doug all the questions you've sent in. So keep those questions coming, and we'll keep these episodes coming, because we are all the way up to episode number 5.
Episode number 5. Gene's like I always say, I say what I mean what I say. Hey, peace.
Hey, folks, before we get out of here, I just want to take a moment to remind you to check out DougGilbertPodcast.com. There you can find links to all things related to this podcast and to Doug himself. There are links to the Dangerous Conversation Facebook page, where we post all sorts of great content regularly involving the Gilbert family. There's the Dangerous Conversations X/Twitter that we have. Plus, there's a link to the Dangerous Doug Gilbert Facebook and X pages, where you can keep up with everything Doug has coming up, like shows, signings, conventions, you name it, and it's all going to be posted right there by Doug on his social media. He appreciates the support, and if you really want to show support, check out the Gilbert Family Pro Wrestling Tees store, featuring a tremendous array of T-shirts featuring Doug, Eddie, and their father, Tommy Gilbert. And if you've enjoyed listening to this show, please subscribe, rate, and review the show on whatever your platform of choice is. It really helps us out, and it helps us build the podcast for the future. And if you want to see a plethora of matches, promos, and angles involving Doug and Eddie and Tommy, you can check out the Gilbert Family playlist on our YouTube channel over at youtube.com/@RetroWrestlingArchive. But that link is available at DougGilbertPodcast.com. And last but certainly not least, we are proud to be a part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Go on over to WrestleCopia.com and check out all the great wrestling-related podcasts and content that our friend Ray Russell provides for you over there. You'll certainly be glad that you did.
This is Wrestling Nostalgia, the podcast that dives into wrestling history. Hey, wrestling fans, I'm Dave Dynasty, and if you enjoy podcasts that are knowledgeable and history-driven, then Wrestling Nostalgia is for you. With great guests and fun interviews, there are over 200 episodes in our archives. We chat with several first-time guests and often cover topics not discussed on other podcasts. Look up Wrestling Nostalgia on your favorite podcast platform and visit all of our links at linktree/WrestlePod. That is linktr.ee/RASSLEPOD. And remember, wherever you go, whatever you do, be good, be safe, and keep on growing.